Leafeon is a little bit better than Bulbasaur.
Okay. All right. Listen, he's been around for a really long time, so I know that he's just kind of like everywhere. Everybody kind of has some fatigue about him. That's fine. He's my boy, and I love him. I do love Leafeon. I would say probably of the evolutions, I kind of flitter between Espeon and Sylveon being my favorite, to be honest. But Leafeon's pretty good. But no, but Bulbasaur though.
I can agree to disagree.
Fair, fair. You also don't want to know just how many Bulbasaur related things are inside of my house. So
I wish I had more than one Leafeon related thing.
yeah, that is one thing that Pokemon Company could be better about is having more merch of all the Pokemon because every Pokemon is somebody's favorite.
Yeah.
So
First, would you like to introduce yourself?
yeah, so my name is Alex Harvey-Rivas. I am a non-binary and autistic author from the Pacific Northwest. I use they, them pronouns. If you couldn't tell already, I am an avid gamer, and that's something I can talk about in a little bit too. I started as a short story writer, so I have 3 anthology publications to my name so far, and then I released my debut novel, A Sharper, More Lasting Pain, last year. And I was really excited for the chat because I get to infodump about it a lot, which I don't get the chance to do that a lot. So
And I could listen to you infodump about it forever.
I had to
I'm
make
gonna
myself a
try to hold
script,
back. That's good because I would enable you otherwise.
and I would
So I
appreciate
think
it.
maybe we can start there
Sure,
with
sure.
A Sharper, More Lasting Pain because I've read it and absolutely love it. If you didn't already
Yay.
know that. I think
Yeah,
there's a video as well on this
I
channel.
saw it and I cried.
Oh yeah,
So
right. I think I cried seeing you say you cried. And I was like, no, don't cry.
no tears. So
Amazing
yeah,
book.
so
So,
thank you. So yeah, I wrote A Separate and Lasting Pain, which is a sapphic fantasy dark academia novel that takes place across 2 timelines. In the before, we're following Nadia, who is a diviner, as she tries to get through her final year of magic school, basically, amidst a worsening chronic illness that she has and tensions that are growing between her and her best friend Etienne, and this new weird relationship that she's building with this other person named Simone. And then afterwards, we're following Simone as they try to figure out what happened after Nadia disappears and Etienne almost dies in a monster attack. And so I guess just kind of going through the general like trajectory of where the idea came from. I have physical writing journals, and I sent you a picture before the chat started of the one that actually started this idea really because I was playing D&D at the time, and for Christmas one year I got this notebook that was dot grid and really pretty and has this like celestial design to it. So it's like dark blue and then it has like furnished gold brass kind of like stars and planets and the sun, and it's really pretty and celestial and whatnot. And so I was carrying it around because I have physical notebooks that I write in, so I carry them around with me when I was like go to work or whatever. And I guess just the general design of it made me think of like old school fantasy when like sorcerers and whatnot would have spell books, and kind of missing that in fantasy because I mean when I think of popular fantasy, it's typically like stabs and just like gesturing into the wind, and like sometimes you get like karate with it, like martial arts with Avatar, and Jade City, the Green Bone Saga by Fonda Lee kind of has that as well, but not a whole lot of like books. And so I was spinning an idea in my brain that kind of like goes back to that. And I'm also really partial to I've never played them for long, but I'm really partial for some reason to Wizards and Dungeons and Dragons, which are, casters who use a book. And so just kind of carrying this around with me and thinking on it more, I was thinking about a story that had something to do with wizards who had to, make a thesis and, present a spell book to defend as like their reason for graduating. And that's how like the magic system in this world worked. And then I kind of combined it with this general like fascination that I have with monsters. And I think mostly it came from Bloodborne because I was really, really, I still am, but I was really, really into Bloodborne Bloodborne at the time. And so looking through my notes and kind of how I was brainstorming it at the time, I was thinking of like monsters that are like kind of like venom symbiotes, but way less sentient is apparently what I wrote down in my notes. I was reading through them yesterday and today to build my script. And so kind of how those two would connect, how the spell books work and whatnot. And I just kind of sat on this for a little bit. And then I finally started thinking about plot hooks. And so the two biggest ones that I just kept coming back to again and again was firstly the notion of a wizard who is trying to defend their thesis when something goes wrong, and then a somebody looking for like a friend, a family member, or something, which is territory I've gone over before. My second short story publication that I have was called "Within These Twisted Vines." It's about this woman who is looking for her missing best friend slash ex-girlfriend slash it's really complicated, and turns to Dionysus, the god that she worships, to try and find her, and ends up entering this Bacchic cult to get her best friend back. And so it's something I've tried to ground on before, but it's something I kind of wanted to like return to. And so just kind of like thinking about those, and then I started thinking about setting potentials. And so I have this long standing fantasy world from like when I was like 14 that originally came from Dark Souls. You can see the inspo if you like turn your head and squint, especially in a few other projects that I have kind of like floating around in the ether. And so I was just kind of thinking about that world and the situation and the setup that I had there with all those other projects, and thinking, because I like to try, I like to make my life easier slash harder, and for a really long time, any fantasy idea I just wanted to include it into that fantasy world that I had because it's kind of a special interest. And so in this case in particular, I was thinking about how I could incorporate this idea into this world that I already have. And so I had a timeline. I went through the whole timeline of like these world events that I said existed and happened. And I was like, okay, well, it could take place after here. I made up some new events to kind of fill in the gaps, to like build the world in my head for myself. I thought about the magic a little bit more, thought about the plot hooks a little bit more. And from early on, I was pretty stuck to the before and after conceit of like telling the story across two timelines that kind of meet in the middle. The middle here being the monster attack that almost kills Etienne and Nadia disappears in. And so Nadia is like ramping up towards that monster event, and Simone's like rapid unspiraling as a result of that. But I didn't fully flesh it out at first. It was just a conceit I was really attached to. And so then I was thinking about that. I was thinking about monsters. I was thinking up names. I have a whole list of names that I just wrote down because I picked just a random country that I had no project set in, and I had like the faintest whiff, like the LaCroix of vibes for, which is the country is Moralton. I don't know if anybody would notice this, but the basic inspo was France. And so I do feel like of all the things that I did in that book, the world building and like the actual like where in the world it's set is probably the weakest of it, but that's okay. It's fine. But I picked a setting. I did so much research on magic schools curriculums, and it took a really long time for me to find things that were not Harry Potter related, and then even more time to find like examples of curriculums that people had built for their own magic schools. So there's a lot of research involved. And then, I just made a list of like, okay, well, if you're a pre-graduate magic student, you would probably need these sort of classes, versus when you specialize in an actual realm of casting, you're going to want to focus on like these sorts of classes that are devoted to your specific, and then, more generalized, like advanced sorts of topics, I guess. So started developing that. And then finally, after like thinking of the world and thinking of the plot and thinking of just like magic and monsters for a really long time, I finally started thinking about like actual characters. And looking over my notes, a couple of things stuck out to me. First of all, apparently I initially decided that Nadia was blonde, which is a really big shock to me now because I don't know how I feel about that. The other thing is Etienne is the first one who actually got a name. Simone and Nadia didn't get their names until I actually started like trying to draft things out. So Etienne is the special boy. He got his name first, and I also don't know how I feel about that one. And then kind of thinking about the school that they're set on and how that all works. And I decided fairly early on that the school is like in on the monster problem, which is part of the conceit. And then, and this is just kind of how my story development works from there. Once I had like an idea that I was kind of working with and building like an outline for, then I started thinking of titles finally. finally. And generally, my title process is I have a whole document that I've been compiling for years because the NaNoWriMo, rest in piss, NaNoWriMo forums had like all these adoptable channels. And so one was Adopt a Title. And so every single year, I would just trawl through those and make a list of any of the ones that I hadn't like put to my list already. And I just kept doing this year after year after year. So I have this whole like 30-page document, I think, of just lists of different titles sorted first by number of words in the title and then by alphabet because I'm like that. And so for this, like with all my other projects, I just kind of went through and picked titles from that list that I had that might sound like they belong to this world. And I narrowed it down to like 7, it looks like 7. Yeah. So I had A Madness Most Discreet, A Sharper More Lasting Pain, A Sun Long Set, Origins of Blood and Ink, Sharpen Your Teeth, This Is the Way the World Ends, and Tiny Jagged Pieces is, I guess, the final like quote unquote list. And I just kept like scratching them out from there. And really what settled the title is I get to a point where I get to like 4 or less and I just pull people. So I think I pulled Instagram for this, where I couldn't decide between A Sharper and More Lasting Pain or A Sharper, comma, More Lasting Pain. So I put both of those up on Instagram and people voted. And I think A Sharper, comma, More Lasting Pain just narrowly squeaked by. And so that's the one that won. So then I had a title that I could like start talking to other people about it with, which felt really nice. And somewhere in there is when I started thinking about Simone's thesis, which never stayed in stone until literally the last draft. Like the last draft that I had before publication, I changed their thesis again. That's also when I decided to do the voice recordings. That's when I started thinking about Nadia's drugs more. And then the first actual scene that I wrote, kind of jumping off of that, is actually spoilers for anybody who hasn't read, and you'll know this scene probably. It's the scene where Simone and Nadia take Serenity together, and they have that really trippy like mind fuse kind of. Yeah. So that's the first actual scene that I wrote, and it remains mostly unchanged from like the initial like me jotting it out to the published version, which that a lot of this book happened that way actually, where a lot of the things that I thought of initially did not change unless it was like tiny particulars like Nadia being blonde or Simone's thesis. Yeah, it's just kind of funny how it happened that way. I guess the initial idea was having a notebook that I carried around that made me think of wizards, and also just wanting to write about monsters because I really like monsters.
I am so intrigued by a lot of things you said right now. I know I've been quiet, but I'm sitting here like containing, like
Hell yeah.
small screams, like.
Another thing I guess that I changed is originally when I was thinking up Nadia, she wasn't a party girl, which is the funniest thing because originally her character trajectory was she was going to like be sick, but she's going to be like doing her best in school, and then she gets this diagnosis. It's just like fuck it, and she throws caution to the wind, and she gets really into drugs and whatnot. And then I changed that a lot, and so that is another thing that actually did change is her actual thing. Also, originally Simone was supposed to get diagnosed as part of the storyline, and Etienne didn't tell them what happened to Nadia until the epilogue, like literally the epilogue, which is close enough to when he actually tells them, but also the circumstances around it were different. So
It seems like Nadia made the biggest changes throughout.
yes, good for her.
But you mentioned the voice recordings.
Yeah.
I really liked the voice recordings. I was so intrigued when I
Thank you.
started reading. I was like, what is going on?
Oh, that is a choice that it's gotten some interesting well, not necessarily now, but when I was like sharing it online and whatnot, it had some interesting reception, mostly in terms of how it was like formatted. Everybody wanted me to format it differently, and I refused. I know there's like typically a way that like audio and whatnot is formatted in written text. I just didn't want to do it. And so then people were like, oh, it's confusing and hard to read. So I did what I could to like make that easier to read. As for it being voice recordings, so like I said, I knew early on that I wanted the school to be in on this secret that the magic turns you into a monster. That's the whole like conceit there, even though I don't like outright say it, And so I wanted to have some way for the characters to figure this out. And also I just, there's this place in my world that I have that is revisited often. It's called Dune. And it's, according to the world mythos, it's where the original gods died, and it's like their grave site. And then it got kind of taken over by miasma. And there's been several attempts over the centuries to try and like reclaim it. People have failed. It's been a constant losing battle. And so I wanted yet again to revisit it because in my mind it's kind of like the source of everything. It's the source of, the gods dying the first time. In a different novel that I have been trying to write for 10 years, the characters all end up going back there over and over and over because it's a time loop. And so it's like a really big, important place. And so obviously for this book, I wanted there to be some nod to it. And so I had from pretty early on the notion of like a researcher or a scientist or somebody like going there and studying it. And I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted her to study, but I wanted her to like find something. And I started writing it out. And originally, I just started writing it like regular prose. But especially with this book being in third person, it felt a little too similar. And I really, really wanted it to stand out as like a there's a lot of discourse online over prologues and whether or not people should have prologues, whether people should read prologues. And I really wanted to get across from like the first lines, like, no, this is something important. It's formatted differently, even because it's so important. And you need to keep this information in mind as you read the rest of the story. So I think that's why I ended up going with voice logs, because then also you have like physical proof of them existing because they show up again in the school. And that's another thing too, that in the last draft, literally, I added that the logs have been changed. Spoiler alert. I added in the last draft that the logs have been changed, and I added that second interlude of like how the audio logs actually went in the last draft. But yeah, I think the biggest reason for making them audio logs was to have something that the students at the school themselves could find, and to have something stylistically distinct enough from the rest of the book that people are kind of forced to pay attention to it.
I think they really like pull you in very well. Especially with like when I went into it, at least it was like I have no idea what's going to happen. I don't know anything about this. I think this was actually the first of your writing that I read
Oh, really?
at the
Nice.
time, I think.
Hell yeah.
And I was just like, okay, what is happening? What are we doing?
I'll have to send you a picture because by far the funniest interaction I have had with somebody is I sent a friend of mine a copy of the PDF, and I don't know how he tried to open it, but he opened the PDF with something, and the all of the text got scrambled. And so he sent me a screenshot of like the opening lines and whatnot. Yeah, there was like words being backwards, just bunches of random. I'll send you this. His text to me when he sent that was downloaded the Google Doc version of it. It started with a series of recordings. I was like, oh no, because I was like, oh, the fear of being perceived. And he's like, fuck yeah, I love fan recording slash footage in books and video games. Get to see snapshots of people as they descend into madness or whatever. Then he sends a screenshot and he's like, wow, they descended quickly. So here you go. This is a sharper, more lasting pain as Google Docs opened
What
it for him.
what like it seems fitting,
There are
but
words there
also
you
yeah,
believe. It tickles me every time I fucking think of it.
uh what
So
what happened? Google,
I I
what are you
I
doing?
don't know. Like I think I don't know. I maybe it's because it was a PDF that he tried to open in Google Docs. I don't
Ah,
know. Like maybe there was some weird security sort of thing. Because then I sent him another version of the file. Oh yeah, I was looking at the PDF and hit the download as Google Doc button. So yeah.
but also it seems fitting. It kind of
Yes.
fits the vibe.
Yes, it does. And so, as a gag, part of me, if I ever get an audiobook of this done, part of me as a gag just wants to have like the whole first page because he sent me the doc of it as it looked. I just want somebody to try and like stumble their way through the first page as like a gag.
Or just like record it and then cut it up and chop it
Yeah.
into it.
I think the best part of this whole image is it's just garbled text all the way down, and then the last line is the only line you can actually read. I'm hoping these new preservatives prove useful.
Yeah. I was like, because I have the book open on
Yeah,
my iPad, and I was like, is this a jumbled mess that makes sense or no? It's correct.
yeah. I still don't entirely know what happened there, but it's
No.
it's the funniest reader interaction I've ever had.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Yeah.
But, like, speaking of audiobooks, how would you imagine, like, the voice recordings in different formats? Because it's
Um,
one of those things that I'm like, "Hmm."
Well, so with audiobooks, provided I had the money, because God knows audiobooks are so fucking
Yeah.
expensive. But
Yeah.
the cool thing with audiobooks is it's a audio performance, and so there's a lot of different techniques that you can try to emulate in writing, and so probably have some sort of like voice effect over whoever is narrating for Chloe that like makes it sound like it's a recording. You know how you like pick up a recording in video games like BioShock or whatever. I'd probably
Yeah.
have it like that, and have like the click in and out of a recording starting and stopping. It is probably how I envision that happening, and then having like that little school disclaimer right before it. Basically, is probably how I would do it.
How would you if we, dream big,
Streaming.
if it would be in another format, like
Mhm.
movie format or, I don't know, game format, or have you thought about, like, how you would make it different from the other things?
I think for me, the problem with trying to envision books in different mediums is every medium has certain things that it can and cannot do, and certain effects that it can get across, or things that it's better for versus not. And so when I write a book or I read a book, I am going into it with the whole knowledge that this is a book. And so I kind of struggle to cross that gap into like, okay, well, it's a book, but how would I think of it as like X, Y, or Z? I think if anything, this would work okay as like a film. I think it's short enough, like timeline wise, that it could work as a film, and so we could have like it would have to be really scattered, probably, but like a prologue of sorts that's like us seeing kind of the events of Chloe's excavation unfolding. But again, it'd have to be really disjointed because there's the version that everybody was told versus the version of what actually happened. I guess there'd have to be a sort of choppiness to it to suggest that there's more there than like what's being shown, and then you get to see the whole sequence of events towards the end, sort of thing. That's probably how I would envision it. But again, it's one of those things where I just kind of struggle to bridge the gap mentally into a different medium.
It was just like when I came up with questions, I was like, "Oh, I want to ask about this."
Yeah, yeah,
Because I know, like, it's far out there to, like, imagine your own books
yeah,
as something bigger, but
yeah.
also, like, sometimes we can dream.
Yeah, I think this could also like it's cheating a little bit. It could also probably work as a visual novel of sorts, and instead of having the whole prologue dumped on you at once, maybe it's like if you make the right choices, you get to pick up these logs, sort of thing, or they're on like unlockables or like little interludes between scenes, maybe where like you get this audio log and then on with the story, and then if you do the right moves, then Simone gets to access the actual log. Spoilers. And then you get to see what like actually happened. But that's another way, maybe.
Ooh, I would like collectibles in a video game,
Yeah, yeah. Again, I was thinking Bioshock.
because there's a lot of the recordings.
Yes,
12.
yes.
Yes.
Uh, yes. I think the prologue has
8.
8. I want to say.
I
Yeah.
just looked it up.
Hell yeah. I know my own book.
I was thinking like, "Oh, it's probably 10," and then I looked it's
Yeah,
been
because
2
I knew
years
I
since I read this.
fair.
I still think about it a lot, though.
Oh, thank you. Someday I'll write a sequel.
Yes, I was gonna ask about that too because it seems like you're building up for there being a potential sequel.
Yeah, so that's something I really went back and forth on when I first wrote the book. I was like, no, 100% this is a standalone. Like this is how it ends, and you're just going to have to kind of like sit with that, and that there's this bigger thing here that there's no real resolution to, but the point is that this happened and you got to observe it. That was my original intention. And then I had beta readers look at it, and beta readers went, "There's a sequel, right?" Like that meme of like Star Wars fucking episode 2 or whatever, when it's uh God, what the fuck is her name? Anakin and not Amidala. His girlfriend he gets emo over. Where she's like, there's more, right? There's more, right? But basically that sort of reaction. And I was like, no, sorry, like this is all there is. This is the story that you get. And then I had my editor go through and edit it. And when he sent back the edits, he was like, there's more story, right? And I was like, I mean, I guess I could think of something like eventually. And so I just kind of like sat with that idea in the back of my head for a really long time, to be completely honest with you. But then, like in April, I want to say, maybe I started thinking of a way that I could write a sequel. I have part of an outline written, and I've written the first like couple of scenes so far, but it's down low on my list of writing priorities right now. But it is something I want to return to and actually do. So, basic premise I guess I can share is 1 year after the events of A Sharper, More Lasting Pain, Etienne Lachance, sad, depressed, alcoholic little man, finds his ex-boyfriend Alexei on his doorstep with papers that suggest that the thing that made Nadia into a monster could be reversed. And so then he spends the book trying to break her out of school, where she is not, and instead Simone is still there. And so he has to break them out and have them help him one more time. And also, all along in this, there is something leaving bodies on his doorstep. So,
Okay, okay, I love this. I need you to bump this up, like right now.
so yeah, that's the general.
I love the idea if they have to work together because they don't like each other very much. Do I remember
Oh yeah,
correctly?
yeah, no, and it's a double whammy because Etienne and Simone are on really bad terms. Somehow, him and Alexi are on worse terms.
Is that possible?
I mean, he dated him, so.
Yeah, but that well, like this is very much for me like if Studio Triggered offered a sequel to Gurren Lagann following Viral specifically,
Yeah.
uh, because my taste in side characters, especially fictional men, not
Fair.
counting Viral is very decent in that regard.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yes, I would argue Viral is the most reasonable one, probably, in Gurren Lagann.
Speaking of taste in characters, I think the most fascinating response that I've gotten to readers of A Sharper, More Lasting Pain is I thought Nadia was going to be everybody's it girl. No, it's Etienne. For some reason, everybody loves the sad, bitchy little man that I made like
Of course.
purposely unlikable.
Where? Unlikable where?
I mean, there are some things he says that are entirely justified, so.
Yeah, and like it's different with unlikable as a character or unlikable as a person.
Yeah,
Very
true.
distinctively different.
True.
Like I said, I may not be the most reasonable one when it comes to taste in fictional characters.
I
I don't
think
know if
maybe
you've read Inkheart.
oh, yeah. It's been
Yeah,
years,
I
but.
am 100% a Basta stan.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Not at first, but down the line when he gets locked up, it kind of just like,
Gotcha.
okay, no.
I think maybe my shock more so comes from when you have this sort of cast that exists within A Sharp and Lasting Pain. I was like, okay, people are going to really gravitate to this sort of stoic, really autistic, weirdly horny nerd. And people are really, really, really going to love this hot girl, like party bitch. They're going to be all over her. There's not going to be enough room for love for Etienne. And it's like everybody just kind of shoved Simone and Nadia off the table and we're like, this one. We want this one.
Maybe it's also like side character thing because I know I tend to like grab onto side characters because I'm like, "Ooh, I want to know more. I get to know
True.
enough
True.
about the main characters. I want to know more about this one."
True. And you will get to learn a lot about him in the sequel, I will say that much. He is a very sad man.
It it, it sounded like he might get main charactered up
Oh
from your
yeah, he
description.
is most to the point of view.
Hence why bump it up. But also
Yes.
not because you have other writing things that I am very
Yeah.
excited about.
Yes. Me too.
How many projects are you? I know two of your projects. Do you
That's
have
a
like
dangerous
more of
question.
them?
It's a very dangerous question. Okay, so that I'm actively thinking about right now, and this answer could change tomorrow because sometimes that happens. I
Okay.
will. So I have Those Who Emerge from Ashes, which is a dark fantasy novel. It takes place about 200 years before the events of A Sharper, More Lasting Pain. And the events of that book are kind of why the world is the way the world is for A Sharper, More Lasting Pain. And it also gets referenced a few times in Our Sharp, More Lasting Pain. In fact, I think in Nadia and Simone's like first scene together, when she's like looking up at them after they've engaged, and she like thinks of a painting, it references characters from that book, for
Ooh.
instance. But there's Those Who Emerge from Ashes that I rotate in my brain. That's the book that also I've been trying to write for 10 years. It is about a blind scholar in a cult, a goddess with her powers bound, and a failed historian on the run who find their lives intersecting as a result of the influence of an 800-year-old Jesus dude. Zombie Jesus dude, rather. And the kicker here is it's a time loop story. So there's a duology planned where this is the loop before the final loop, and then there's going to be a sequel that is the final loop. And part of the reason it's taken me so long to write is because I have struggled for years to like get it into a state that I am happy with. I think I have an outline now that I like. I need to finish said outline, but I just kind of keep spinning it around in my brain and it keeps dropping down the list of priorities. We have the A Sharper, More Lasting Pain sequel, which I haven't fully decided on a title yet. I think when I last looked at it, I had thought to call it A Sharper, More Lasting Monstrosity, but I'm not 100% sold on it. I've kind of kicked around a few different titles. I already talked about that one, obviously. There's The Distance Between Stars and Salt, which is a sapphic seafaring fantasy novel that follows a mortal woman and her starborn wife as they go on a final adventure together, as told by the mortal wife at her star wife's funeral. I am hoping to release that in the summer of 2026. So I've kind of gone back and forth on plans with that one, but I think summer 2026 is kind of where that one's sitting. So that one's closer to release than anything else. So we're at three. There's Flesh of My Flesh, Dark of My Dark, which is I keep changing the genre, like how I call it genre wise, but I think I've settled on a fantasy horror romance. And this follows an abyssal body snatcher who is tasked to kill an oracle of light and instead falls in love with her and also develops feelings as a whole, which is something she's not supposed to do. And that one, that's why I said, if you ask me tomorrow, the plan might change, because I, in like October, was like, okay, yeah, I have most of The Distance Between Stars and Salt out of the way now. I can kind of start like thinking of what I want to prioritize next. I'm going to prioritize Those Who Emerge from Ashes. I'm going to like really dive into this one. And then Flesh of My Flesh, Dark of My Dark knocked on the door and was like, hey, bitch. So yeah, so now we're at four. I have a couple of short stories that I'm trying to figure out what to do with. So one is called Gestalt. I want to submit that to some magazines in January, and that is about a married couple who, at their wits' end with their marital issues, takes like a last resort decision and fuses bodies together. And in the process, the quote unquote husband figures out that she's trans. So that one I just really need to like revise and find a home for, so that'll take not a whole lot of time. And then I have Honey Intravenous, which I will lead me into a tangent in a little bit. But that is about a plasma donor who, after her latest donation goes awry, finds herself acquiring a vampire Dami sugar mama. So that's fun. And then I have I have something that doesn't have a title right now that I just call Project Kill Your Rapist, which follows a professor at a magic school who, 5 years after this horrific assault, finds that her assaulter is now a tenured professor at her school. So she like flips out and ends up dismembering him by the end of it, as one does. And that's really low on my list of priorities, but it is something I want to get to eventually. And then I have the vibes for a seventh thing that I'm still just kind of like kicking around in my head. But that kind of relates to the tangent with Honey Intravenous as well. So seven.
7 chaos-filled things, it sounds like.
Yes.
I really like the contrast that you have like this super organized title document and outlines of everything, and then everything sounds like it's chaos,
Yes.
like
Yes.
story-wise.
Yeah, so my general process, and I actually talked on a different podcast about this like a couple months ago now. Over the years, it's kind of solidified to I get an idea, I write an outline. Nowadays, it's I write a zero draft, and then I write the drafts that spin out of that, which normally don't take that many because the with the kind of it's like scaffolding basically. I'm building myself a scaffolding, and I try and like get insight in these early stages so that I prevent having like really big like plot issues later. And so I've got half an outline for Ashes, half an outline for the A Sharp and Lasting Pain sequel. I have an outline for Flesh. I've almost done really with Salt. Just Salt is done really. Honey Intravenous just needs to be finished. But like all of these have the same general kind of like trajectory, and then I get to the point where it's like, okay, well I've set myself up as much as I can. It's kind of up to me now to like do it, and that's the hard part.
Yeah, writing is hard
It
and
is.
fun
It is.
and
It
hard.
is. Yes.
I feel like when you mention them, I recognize a lot of them, like plot wise or how you describe
Oh,
them.
sick. Sick.
But I was like, okay, I know about two. I know about flesh and the distance between things.
Stars and Salt. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I was just opening the Discord server where I'm sorry, I haven't done anything there. I was started reading it. I started writing things down, the answer to your question, and then I freaked out about answering questions in public. So I just
Oh no.
ran away.
That's fair. I'm sorry.
It's on me. But those two were the ones I was like, okay, I know about these two. I also know that the cover is really pretty.
Oh my god, it's so fucking pretty. I just gotta take a second to like really gas up my cover artist because Eva is the fucking best. I love her so much. She goes by Is This Eva online. EVA. She makes her
I,
own comics. She makes covers. She did the cover for me. She also, people will see this in the published version. She did the star chart that I'm going to include, and she did the world map.
I will put
See if I
the
can.
cover up on screen because I already have the cover saved
Hell yeah.
since the cover reveal.
Hell yes. That was also probably my favorite cover reveal out of the whole set, I gotta say.
I actually like recently saw that you had tagged me in one of your live streams about the cover reveal. I had like missed that whole part of like a YouTube studio. I
Oh
was like,
yeah.
oh, why do I see this 6 months later?
It's
It
fine, it
was
happens.
my first cover reveal of that kind, and it has become like my standard cover reveal thing now.
It's so neat and creative, I gotta say. I love it a lot.
It was so fun. I do need to like make a new cover reveal thing because the envelope I've drawn things on is kind of ugly. It's crumpled up. But that's
Okay.
your next release, is it?
Yes. Yes,
Planned.
asterisk. Yes, asterisk. I say asterisk because, and this is something I've kind of like thought about over the last. Well, I say that I've thought about this for like a year, right? Like when I was thinking about releasing A Sharp and Lasting Pain, I was kind of thinking about like all the ideas that I have kind of spinning around in my spaghetti brain. I was like, okay, all these are decidedly adult, but some of these are more less public friendly than others. And so I was trying to decide, how much do I want to put under my name is Alex? And so, like a year ago, I made a second pen name because originally I was going to release something under it. It might have been Honey Intravenous, I don't remember. But so I made DW Cats as like a pen name for like my more less public friendly works, shall we say? And then I just kind of like kicked it to the side because social media is hard. And I was like, well, it takes me so long to write things anyway that by the time that like any of this is relevant, I might not need it anymore. But I have been reminded recently that my family sees the things that I do on social media. In particular, I can't go on half the tirades that I want to go on Blue Sky because my stepmother likes and interacts with all of my posts. And so to be as big as possible, I was sent an AO3 fic the other day for a really niche microgenre of not public friendly content that again, I don't go here, but I read it and I was like, oh, this like tickles something in my brain. And so then the pen name came back because I want to be able to like talk about it, and I want to be able to like write other things that I don't have to think about my family seeing and like thinking about and asking me about. So technically, Salt is going to be my next release as Alex, but I'm hoping maybe to finish Honey Intravenous and release that as its own thing under this other pen name in like Valentine's Day ish. But we'll see, because I said that this year and then I didn't do it. So
Okay, so you have always a lot of things.
yes, it is how I function. I need to like it's
Yeah.
like tofu. You need to like constantly press it.
And somehow like everything gets more exciting when there's a lot of things to be excited about.
Yes.
It's just us readers are suffering because we want everything all at once.
Yeah, yeah, that's the unfortunate part of it. But what can you do? Writing is hard and it takes a lot of time. And I think the biggest benefit that I have is all of my things are in different stages. So I have like something that's like vibes. There's something that's like almost done. There's something that I have an outline for and I really need to write. There's something that I have like an outline like half done and I need to finish it. Like they're all in different stages. So if I'm bored with something, I can move to something else and I can like, they're different like states of mind almost. And so it's useful in that way, but I can respect and understand how to people who just in general want to read things that I write might be frustrated because I'm not finishing any one given thing at a time.
It's not only you though, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
okay.
of course.
I think that's like one of the best and worst sides of having like other writer friends. It's like
Yes.
I get to know a lot of things about everything that people are writing, but I also
Hmm.
don't get the finished products because I get to know everything small about everything that isn't done.
Yeah.
But to
Yeah.
move on a little bit, so
Hmm.
we,
Yeah, sorry.
because yeah, no, don't worry about it. I love just like listening to things and
Hmm.
talking about it, and that's why I'm doing author chats and not interviews, because I felt like interviews feel a bit more strict.
Yeah.
But we mentioned video games a little bit,
Yes.
and you've already talked about it a bit in how it
Mhm.
has inspired things. Is there anything else you would like to add about how video games has influenced your writing?
Yeah, so it's been integral to me as a person from like the get-go. If you ask my mom, she will say that the first thing I wrote, quote unquote, was I was 2 years old. I was walking around our double wide mobile home with her Tomb Raider game guide. And first I demanded that she teach me how to read using that. And she was like, oh, when you turn 3, we'll get, the hooked on phonics. I was like, no, I want to read this one. And when that didn't work, I started scribbling in it, quote unquote, writing. That's when she would say that I started writing. Really, I would say I started writing when I was 6 years old, and my parents were both playing World of Warcraft, and I was writing fan fiction about their characters. So it's something that I've just kind of done my whole life, and they both kind of existed together in tandem. And there's a lot of games that I just play for the sake of play, but there's kind of it's existed for a long time, and it just kind of continuously sort of builds like wellspring of like specific things that I take inspiration from. So one that I mentioned already is Dark Souls. Really, the whole series, except for Elden Ring, I kind of bounce off the lore of Elden Ring for whatever reason. I think there's just too many like similar sounding names that I just can't parse it all. Because like in theory, it should be something that I love, but I can't with Elden Ring. But Dark Souls lore, I'm all about Bloodborne lore. Bloodborne lore, I'm fucking rabid about. I last week debated the logistics of if I should teach myself Italian purely because I found a single like anthology sort of thing that somebody wrote about Bloodborne that I don't have, and it's in Italian. And I was like, do I want to pay international shipping and teach myself a whole ass foreign language just so I can read this? The answer right now is no. But again, ask me tomorrow, that could change. So
Yeah.
but I'm just there's so much aesthetic wise, lore wise, theme wise. Really, that game is just like stuffed to the gills, with lore or themes and different themes and like different takes on those themes. And like I could just spend hours like unspooling it like a yarn ball, So that one in particular, Final Fantasy, kind of like as a franchise, is one that I kind of like think about a lot. In particular, I'm fond of 4 because think it has a really nice story. 6 for similar reasons, and also just like a really cool like world setup. And then my hot take is I think 13 is a good game and everybody should shut the fuck up and stop crying about it. Because I really maybe it's just the story of that one too. I just really like the story of it and the characters there because they're really interesting and imperfect sort of characters. I love Lightning. She is a bitch. She is a badass. I love her so much. Everybody thinks she's Cloud 2.0 and they should get a boot shoved down their throat. I think Snow and Hope are kind of tied for my least favorite, but like Hope at least has the excuse of being 14 and having watched his mom die at the start of the game. So, he has some baggage. So I'm like, okay, I can like let it slide, but you're on thin ice. But Saz is really cool. Fang's wife, Viniel's kind of on thin ice, but like just all of them, just like I really like the story. It's a little hard to understand, but it's just really cool. And so that one's kind of kicking around in my head. For Flesh in particular, I really leaned into Dishonored and BioShock as sources of inspiration and sources of themes for that one. So like the aesthetic primarily and the general like industrial sort of setup, but also just, themes of capitalism, themes of people building things that they say are good intentioned but really are not. Shit like that. So but yeah, to make a really long answer short, like it's kind of been, again, it's baked into me from like day one, and it and writing kind of came up in prominence in my life at the same time and were really, really deeply entangled.
That's a good
Yeah,
answer.
thank you.
I was like just trying to keep up with like, okay, what game is this? I started playing video games very late
That's
in
fair.
my life, and I have only quote unquote played one Final Fantasy game.
Mm.
We used it as instead of watching movies in the evenings. My boyfriend played through Final Fantasy X, and I watched.
Oh, interesting. Nice. That is one of the better ones too. So all the Final Fantasy games have a sliding scale where you start off somewhat normal, and by the end it's like completely batshit. You're fighting God. And some of those games, the slider is really big, and some of them is really short. And 13 in particular, it's kind of like from the gate, you are getting high fantasy, high science nonsense, and you're just kind of expected to follow along or die. And I respect it for that. So
It's a lot, even though I'm just like seeing parts of it, and I'm like, okay,
yeah,
what is going on?
yeah,
But the reason I'm thinking video games because you are doing live streams
yeah.
sometimes.
I really got to do them more.
So I'm like curious on, do you plan your live streams at all? And in that case, how? And also what gave you the idea to do live streams?
Sure, yeah. So, that depends on what I'm doing because if in the past I've done some game playthroughs and I really want to do more of them, especially since I have the Oblivion remaster. I will go into it with a specific plan of like I am live streaming to do this, and I just kind of go for as long as I can. With writing streams, it is a lot more chaotic and random, and mostly so for the writing part of the live streams. The initial thought behind it is I ended up putting myself into a tight corner in terms of deadlines and being like, okay, I really need to like get things done. The only way I feel like I can get things done is if I have eyes on me. But all my Discord friends have lives and whatnot, so I can't just like hop on a call and share my screen. I'm gonna do this live and in public so people can watch me even though like people don't watch me. It's the mind state of like feeling like I'm being watched that really helps. And so I really need to start doing it again because I have things that I really need to get done. And so that was the initial thought behind the writing live streams. And for that, planning is really just I have something I need to get done. I'll find some like music to throw on in the background really quickly. A lot of the times the audio mixing is bad and I don't realize it until after the fact. So one thing I've started incorporating in the last couple is I'll do a little like really quick like test video for myself to test the audio levels, and then I will cross my fingers and pray for the best that it maintains for the rest of the video. That has been helpful because I do listen to them afterwards while I'm at like work or whatever, and I'll be like, wow, I cannot hear myself talk, and I've been going on like this really important tangent about my writing plans, or like this really important writing topic, and it's like I can get like 5 words out of this. So that's become part of like a mandatory part of my plan. But otherwise, it's just kind of like I have something I need to get done. I need to have eyes on me. Let's stream. The video game part of it, that one. So I again, video games are really a big part of my thing. I watch a lot of people on YouTube play games. So in high school I was really obsessed with Game Grumps. Nowadays, for the last couple of years, I've been watching this guy RT Games. He's pretty chill, and so they'll do live streams and then upload the VODs later. And that wasn't quite my intention. My intention more so was I want to share games that I like, and I want to play them through the vehicle of like one of my characters and getting to like info dump about that character while I'm playing. So I think the first one that I did was on Twitch and not YouTube, because I didn't realize that you had to like do some verification thing to live stream on YouTube. So the day that I wanted to stream, I had to do it on Twitch instead. And it was a playthrough where I started on new Skyrim playthrough as Catalan from Those Who Emerge from Ashes. And so I spent like 2.5 hours talking about Catalan's backstory and like my inspirations for her and whatever, while I was just kind of like going through the game and trying to like play the game as her. So I kind of carried that through with any of the other games that I've played on my live streams since. And it's something I haven't done for a really long time, because again, I have deadlines, I have things I need to get done, but it's something I really want to go back to. I would really like to do a Pokemon Nuzlocke where I don't know if I would do a whole like Nuzlocke, especially because the one I want to play is Black and White and Black and White 2, and those are hard if you're Nuzlocking. But really the intention with Pokemon playthroughs is to like build a team based around like a specific character. So in a way it's like playing as them, but instead it's like, well, I chose this Pokemon because this Pokemon has this sort of lore, or it's this type, which I think fits really well with this character, or it has this sort of aesthetic, which fits this character's aesthetic, that sort of shit. All of it with the intention of I want to play games, I want to share these games with others, and I want to use I guess my shtick, quote unquote, as it were, to make myself kind of stand out, is instead of just like I'm a streamer, I'm playing video games, it's I'm somebody who writes books and I want to play these games as my characters. And so kind of like the best of both worlds there, I guess.
I would love to see that.
Hell
I
yeah.
always miss your live streams, and then I see like, oh, okay. I never know
Yeah,
when they are, so I'm
don't.
like,
I never know when
no.
they are either.
And I think it doesn't help the time zone issue either.
Yeah, yeah.
So I want to start rounding this off with
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
last question, which is one of the important questions.
Yes.
And that is, do you have any other authors you would like to like spotlight?
Yeah, I have a few. So I feel like I'm obligated to do this because he did it for me in his. First one's gonna be Andromeda Ruins. Andy is one of my best friends. We've been friends for like 3-4 years now. We met on Tumblr. He let me info dump to him about all of my early like world building ideas. He was one of the first people to really get a lot of information about A Sharp Armor Lasting Pain. He's been a really big support. We also have the same release date because I picked October 10th because it's my and my spouse's wedding anniversary. I know there's reasons for him picking October 10th for his first book, Call Me Icarus, of the Call Me Icarus series. But now it's just kind of like a joke with us that like we share a book birthday. So we keep meaning to do something for that, and we've been so fucking busy, man. But yeah, Andy's gonna be my first one. I also would like to shout out Lads, who's become another really big friend of mine. They wrote a few different things. They wrote The Fealty of Monsters, which is really, really good. I keep hearing ticklings of updates for the second book that I'm really excited about. They also wrote The Cradle of Eternal Night, which if you want a book that it feels like Dark Souls and has lesbians, there you go. They also wrote a fantasy noir type book called Ice Upon a Pier, which I haven't read yet, but it sounds really intriguing to me, so I really need to get into it. And in general, they're just a really cool person. We kind of bond over the fact that we're both writers of cultural diasporas. Well, they're closer to their culture than I am, but writers of cultural diasporas kind of like writing about our cultures. So in Lad's case, they're Polish. In my case, I'm Maltese from my grandmother. And so Salt in particular and Flesh in particular are Maltese inspired fantasy novels. So we've really gotten to bond over our like writing about our cultures sort of thing. So them. I also want to shout out Aubrey Ennis, who wrote Name Her Holy, which is there are a lot of books that call themselves or comp themselves to Gideon the Ninth. Name Her Holy is the only book I have read that actually earns it. So if you like science fantasy, if you like lesbians, of course, you should really pick up the book. They did all the cover art themselves. She just released a really, really nice deluxe hardcover, and I hate hardcovers, but I picked it up because it's really pretty. So just a really fantastic writer. They're really cool to talk to on Blue Sky. Who are some other people I can just like scream about super quickly? Not indie, but a couple days ago, as the fever in my brain was starting to build, I read and finished Metal from Heaven by August Clark. And it is the kind of book that you would want to read if you have a fever. Also has so many lesbians. It is the most like dyke filled book I've ever encountered. So they're also super cool. I met him at Worldcon and I listened to him do a reading of Metal from Heaven. Super sweet dude. And I told him this too. I have been quote unquote seen on a lot of different levels in a lot of different books, being non-binary or autistic or whatever. But Metal from Heaven is the first book that I read that I felt like I was being seen on a class specific level. And that was really important to me. So they're not active at all on social media as far as I'm aware. They have a Blue Sky account. He doesn't post on it. He has an Instagram. It's private, but I just had a really nice experience meeting him at Worldcon and getting to listen to him read, and then reading his book while I was going insane with sickness and going insane about it as appropriately as one does. And then one more super quickly, just because I've been thinking about her a lot. I have a friend who is sadly no longer with us. Their name is Joanne Kwan. They wrote and drew a lot of comics. They wrote a monster romance called Secunda, and there's a sequel, Copula. I was supposed to meet her at Worldcon as well, and unfortunately she passed away in April, so I was not able to, but she was part of a really, really small writing group with me and a few other people that I did end up meeting at Worldcon, and we did something for them there. So that was really nice, but I've just been thinking about them a lot, and I think that people should read their works.
Absolutely. It's been really fun to have a chat with you.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. It's been so
Yeah.
nice to talk to you.
It's so nice to talk to you too. And I really like having like being able to show more personality
Yeah,
while
yeah, it's one
also
of my
like
favorite parts.
lifting up other authors.
It's very nice.
Where can people read your works, preferably?
Sharper, More Lasting Pain is available through most major retailers. It's on Amazon, it's on Barnes& and Noble, it's on Kobo, it's on Itch.io, Rest and Piss. Of those, I think Itch.io gives me the most revenue overall. I have a website, author alexharvey.card.co, I think is what it is. And all my kind of like books are listed there. So you can find links to buy them all on there. And you can follow me on most socials at author Alex Harvey to hear me scream about any future book updates that I have, such as release links for when The Distance Between Stars and Salt comes out.
And I will also leave links down below. So if you get any more, you can just let me know.
Hell yeah.
But thank you so much for doing
Thank you
this
so
chat
much
with
for
me and being here. And for the people who listen, thank you so much for watching/listening. Have a great adventure, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
See you next time. Bye.